So it seems like every few months there is new reports, new rumors, new information floating around about this Nintendo Switch Pro. And the last time we talked about this was back in March, where we covered the original Bloomberg report from Takahashi Mochizuki indicating that the new Switch would contain a bigger screen, would be OLED, potentially some form of DLSS with some enhanced performance, as well as a larger screen, I believe a 7-inch screen. Now, this particular report didn't really give a timeline around the Switch Pro's release, other than it would be later on this year. And, that could mean anything. And my initial thought was it would be something that would probably come out next year due to, things like chip shortages and whatnot. But hey, there's a new report now that's come out from Bloomberg, again from Takahashi Mochizuki, about the Nintendo Switch Pro, and it's being called the Switch replacement here. But this particular report is now suggesting that the new Nintendo Switch Pro, whatever you want to call it, may get an announcement before E3, which is only in a couple of weeks, and it may be available on the market as soon as September, which is really not that far away. Now, taking a quick look at this report, it says Nintendo plans to begin assembly of its new Switch as soon as July and release the upgraded replacement for its 4-year-old game console in September or October, people familiar with the matter said. The new console, likely to be priced higher than the $299 original, may be announced ahead of E3 conference starting June 12 to allow publishers to showcase their full range of Switch games at the global event. The people said, asking not to be named because the plans are yet not public. It will be sold alongside the $199 Switch Lite, with the standard Switch phased out over time. Assemblers will start shipping the new model, whose commercial name is known only to a handful of people, as early as July, and production is planned to ramp up to a peak in October-December quarter. This is despite widespread semiconductor shortages that have affected the supply of everything from automobiles to TVs, headphones. And then this report just goes on to once again discuss the specifications of the new revision Switch, the 7-inch Samsung OLED display, the NVIDIA graphics, potentially with DLSS, upscaling to 4K, all that kind of stuff. Nothing has really changed on that front. And as it turns out, Eurogamer also came out with a news article overnight and basically just confirmed the Bloomberg article with their own sources. As it says here, Nintendo's long-awaited Switch upgrade is expected to be shown at E3 2021, according to a report published by Bloomberg and Eurogamer's own sources. I understand this is to ensure third parties working on games which support the upgraded Switch are free to announce these projects at E3 and before Nintendo's own digital showcase later this week. So this report basically says we're going to get an announcement of hardware before E3 in anticipation and preparation of getting games shown at E3 that run on the new hardware. Now, this sounds really exciting to me, but in another way, it sounds almost too good to be true. And I'm definitely not discrediting the reports that have come out because, once again, when you've got Bloomberg and Eurogamer with their own sources basically backing up and corroborating the information, then you have to just go on their word that this is something that's going to happen. But I will also say, as a developer on the Nintendo Switch, this is definitely not something that I am privy to. I definitely have not heard any information about the Switch Pro in this capacity. But that's, the other thing you have to keep in mind here is that, look, I'm just a indie game dev at best, but I have asked around in the industry. I've asked other developers that work on the Nintendo Switch games, and everyone that I know has come back and told me the same thing, that they are not familiar with anything to do with the new Nintendo Switch revision. Now, having said that, that doesn't necessarily mean that this information is inaccurate. I would expect that Nintendo has a very much curated and controlled list of companies that are actively working on new Switch Pro games, and we'll see some of those at E3. And one company that comes to mind, and again, this is just speculation, is Capcom. I think that if any company is going to show us something at E3 that is working on new Switch Pro games or new Switch revision hardware games, then I think that Capcom is probably a good third party to be looking at those, and I would expect to see, maybe we'll see them with something. But also, Nintendo's internal R&D labs and things like that. I mean, Nintendo themselves are probably also queuing up some new Switch Pro games to show us at E3 as well. But look, my opinions and thoughts on this is, it seems very, very aggressive to me. And it's hard for me to imagine that we'll see these things, but it is E3, and E3 is coming very, very fast. And I think if Nintendo is going to show us something, then this is the right time to do it. So I definitely don't discount the information that has been presented, but I also, as a developer of the Nintendo Switch, have some understanding of the roadmap of the Switch line of products. Find it very hard to imagine that developers should be expected to work on Switch Pro games between now and then have them ready for September. That does seem very aggressive. And I also think about the current landscape of games that are being developed right now and being submitted to lot check and things like that. Do those developers, do those publishers, how much they feel about this? Do they think, well, maybe we should hold off on our releases and then incorporate the Switch Pro enhanced versions of those games and get them submitted instead? I can tell you that there is no Switch Pro dev kit that exists right now. Now, that's not to say it doesn't exist in a prototype, and like I said, certain developers have access to that dev kit and are working against that target set of specifications. That's probably happening as we speak. In fact, it must be happening as we speak based on these reports. But the kind of just the average publisher, the average indie developer that is a Nintendo dev won't have access to the Switch Pro hardware, at least not yet. So that, of course, all may change here very, very quickly. In fact, it may change as of next week. But as of the making of this episode, things kind of feel a little strange to me. Like, we're getting more reports. There's a lot of smoke, but there's still no fire yet. But hopefully we'll start to see the fire, start burning, next week. But this last article really does feel like it's happening here very, very soon. The announcement and the release of these games at E3 is very imminent, and I'm very interested to see where this one goes. Well, I'm going to leave it here for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.